how many problems are there with the Nueva crossing theory? Quite a few, it seems.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Um, we have diving. We have remote, deep diving, and they're here. They're here right now. They're doing this work right now. This exploration of the bottom of the Red Sea using deep submersibles, and they the ones to some degree you just go unmanned. It's just cameras. Um, there are ones that do have personnel and are better, but still the depth. People do not realize how deep it is there. It is as deep as it is. Like you're going to have to go that deep. And if you go that deep, you're going to have to climb back up. It's like a mountain, you know.
So
Um,
it's so deep at that crossing point that it's like, oh, what did we have repelling equipment to get all the people
yeah.
and livestock and everyone down and back up again? Okay, okay.
Now there are those that say, well, when the water rushed back in, it may have carved those cliffs we see. You know, well, bathymetric and these things, they're still there. They do find proof of a tsunami event. This is one of those weird things to point out, but it is. It's in the scholarship and it's in the uh, they it's it's met with a lot of review and it's been validated and it's a whole big school in itself. Uh, the tsunami event in history or events, they've been plural, but this big one, to have this big one, a tsunami that actually, well, in the case of the greater Red Sea that goes all the way out to the Indian Ocean, uh, that that way of bringing water out and emptying out the Red Sea so that they could cross makes a whole lot more sense because it's a matter of time. You got to have something of a long retreat for the water that has a small mouth. It's only going to let it back in so rapidly. Uh, to open up a tsunami that is as many hours as it takes to walk across the Red Sea would require the whole length of the Red Sea out to the Indian Ocean. And if you do that, you you make an event out in the Indian Ocean that or a seismic event that draws the water out of the whole the whole of the Red Sea area. Um, you have this amazing thing. If you did it at Nueva, the problem with that is the cliffs, the descent down to this 750 meters. 750 meters underwater is extremely deep. So you could say, oh well, you got the miracle, the walls of water. Well, you got one verse there, and you're going on that word wall. That is it. It's a this this is a, like, we think, a wall of vertical partition. The waters were parted like partition and are walled on either side. But that's not what it is. It's when tsunami happens, water walls up somewhere. It's drawn back to a point. That point where the seismic event happened pushed it up, and underneath created a vacuum. From the time that force up occurs, there's suction underneath, and it draws from the sides. So whatever event you have that's out there, the the drawing in happens. Then the return of it is that wall expressed. It wells up, whatever, it becomes this huge mounded up thing out there. But to reach equilibrium again, it has to send out these waves, and the waves have to come in. And as the waves come in, they have to come in that mouth, and they have to fill back up again. Well, all the while, like a gun barrel, it's accelerating toward Egypt, where the pharaohs have come, or the pharaoh's army and the commanders, the captains of Egypt have come, and they've had to come this way, you know. That's important to realize, that where you cross, and here's Nueva again, how did Pharaoh get there? If in fact you could take, they say 2 million, but okay, round it to that or whatever. Say 2 million people. How did you get them to Nueva? And then how did all the chariots? It numbers the chariots, and that's two horses wide, or it's wide enough to have two wheels, and two wheels. You got to roll. You can no longer just have a rough path that you got to foot. You got to have a road. It's got to be rollable. So remember this, that you're dealing with a narrative, and the narrative has these counts. You got 2 million people, and if they're on that place of Nueva, oh my gosh, okay, fit all those people onto there, and then have somehow chariots make it there. And they've got to make it through that narrow, and they've got to come out to the point where they're visible. Well, from the time that you come out onto Nueva, if you've ever been there, it's immediate. I mean, instant. You got that many people there, and suddenly, how? It would have been a massacre. As soon as he's seen, it's an element of surprise. My gosh, you don't have a chance to pick up your stuff. You're not going to be crying to Moses, and you know what I mean? There isn't any space for separation between 2 million people and the army of Pharaoh. And all this goes on and on and on and on. Then you got to somehow get them off of that down a place that is on the south of Nueva. You got to make this southern, and it's a circular descent, just like how you would climb a mountain. When you see the bathymetric, you gotta have a way that you climb this mountain. In this sense, it's a descent. And up the other side, you got to have the same thing. It's a grade, and you've got to negotiate that grade. And if you can't negotiate that grade, you got to zigzag back and forth. Well, the best thing you can do is have a curve. You make a round ascent, like a corkscrew is the best way. You just go around as you climb, as opposed to straight up. This is the thing, though. You got to curve down to make the grade that you can descend. Then you got the dry land. Dry land is great if it's level. If it's level and the water has gone away, and it is a terrain. There's something about this terrain that it is not holding moisture. It's able to be crossed. It's not muck. It's not like the bottoms of channels is silt. It's sedimentary, and it's mushy. And this would have to be, they come across on the solid ground. So the point is all these things that are involved. Hold on a second. I'm going to turn the light on. I could see it was getting dark.
Yeah, it was kind of a good atmospheric darkness.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, bring it into the light that there's many things to consider when you're ascertaining exactly what happened. But it is ascertainable when you get past that it isn't this 750-foot depth that has to be gone across in the middle. And you don't have to make this ramped descent to a ramped ascent that would be slippery no matter what. And it would be treacherous. I mean, even if it was like it is down at the Strait of Tiran, the neat thing about Tiran is that there you have a walkable. There you don't have, it's an amazing thing. It was shallow to begin with. It was so shallow that it was crossable. It was able to be passed without too much water removal. It didn't even have to be a really emptying out of the entire basin. It just needed to bring the water level down to the point where the air could just blow it dry. And what dries quickly is coral. And coral is what requires that closeness to the surface. You can't have coral growth You have it's sort of like timberline in mountains. You have this point at which if you go high enough up a mountain, timber won't grow any higher. Well, it's the same thing in depth, only coral won't grow there. So as you dive, you gotta be where it's close enough to the surface that the coral lives. And more than that, it's called the Red Sea because of the redness of the coral. It is the famous coral of the Bedouin. These Edomites love this red coral. It's all the Bedouin jewelry. It is red because it is exposed to oxygen, because it lives underwater or is close enough to the surface to be oxygenated, to actually be red. And it turns red. Even the white stuff that's brought up from the lower levels becomes blue and red as it's exposed to oxygen. How rapidly! It's an amazing thing about the whole narrative only works one way. And when you look at that way, you begin to see a God of creation. And this is what my previous works with you guys has been about. It's just showing that this is not something that we can just pin a desirable place. We got this split rock, and that must be it, because it looks grandiose, and these graves that are here must be the Amalekites, and it's that kind of thing where we make the narrative, and the problem is we can't find the rest. We can't find a workable path that actually does any. It's not direct. You don't come across to a 3 days wilderness from Nueva. That's not a 3-day wilderness. And then what? That you got to go that 3-day wilderness before you can return to the sea. And it's not mountains. There's a different word for mountains. You know this when you're dealing with mountains. There are mountains and there is wilderness. And wilderness requires it's big enough that you have to have a point of reference, which is what Medbar means. The Dabar, you would know Dabar as like the word or the matter, which is what it really means. It's every word is material. It is absolutely an object. It's an objective language. The word is real. It's demonstratively defined, or the definition demonstrates itself in the object. But this is Midbar, from Dabar. From knowing that, you can get across it. It's only from that point to that point. It's a point A to point B situation that Midbar works. It's not through this. It would tell you a valley, or it would tell you a mountain that we pass by this way, whatever. And if it just is this like wilderness of, what is that name? Wilderness, Midbar, whatever. What is the word? This kind of thing. You don't have it. You don't have it. It's not. Call it sure. It's not sure. Nueva is no way to a 3-day wilderness that is not sure. You don't go around anything. There's no. It's not a wilderness of 3 days that goes around anything.
Yeah, the route. When you were speaking to us privately, that's what I found. Well, many things very compelling, but especially the fact that you have marked every spot on the route is interdependent on the last spot, because the narrative tells you where they went and where the next place was and where the next place was. So even with all the other issues with the Nueva crossing, even if they could be overcome, I still have this question of, yeah, but the next place doesn't fit where they went afterwards. Like, there's just so many.
Well, anybody who goes there sees it. They're just like, whoa. You'd actually have to. Well, the visible God thing, all these things. It's like, okay, well, Moses was some sort of leader expert, or the God had to have been like long, like it couldn't just be a focal point distant. Yeah, he'd have to have been right here upon you. You'd be literally like looking up saying, okay, which way are you pointing? You know, that's how narrow that way gets. You're constantly we're just going on through this narrow between the rocks kind of thing.
Yeah. Do we have a
You
slide of the crossing point?
I'm not sure anymore. I did it on the past ones.
Okay. No worries. If we don't have one, that's fine. I thought we might have one.
The past ones, I really got jumped on, it was insulting that like you've dwelt on this for so long, and move on. You got a whole bunch of things to explain to people, and yeah, like wow, I'd rather get on with the oracles. So this is what I had in earlier with you. What I was going to try and get you to arrive at is, can we get oracular with this? Because people really, more than needing to know the way, not everybody's going to come and visit these places, and not everyone's going to really care about lingering long and experiencing these places, whatever. Especially today, these days, you can see it all in pictures if there is a photograph. If anybody's managed to actually snap a pic, great, you see a place. But without this, most people will not experience this. They're not going to actually come and go the way, mostly because it's kind of unimportant. Well, it is important. It is important if you're trying to save your body. If you want to walk through if you want to escape the end of the world, and you want to make it through this thing, that's what it is. It is the great emergence. Exodus is emergence, and it is the emergency. It's the exit on the door. It tells you this is the way out, and that's what this is. This is the way to. This is the eject switch in the aircraft that you're going to punch out. You're gone. The aircraft's going to go. You can't stay in this nice little controlled environment. It's going to become a ball of fire, and you've got to punch out. And it's that kind of thing. That's what Exodus is. It is the way, because things are going to be rough, and things are going to get rougher, and things are going to be tough, and they're going to get tougher, and there's going to be a lot of dead people, and there is no escape in their mind. So to know these things, to want to know these things, you gotta be looking for some kind of real salvation, that save me bodily, save the works of my hands physically, give me a way that I can get my kit and caboodle packed together and go. Give me an itinerary that I can, a map that I can go this way, that kind of stuff. Because it isn't for everyone. Most people, and I would say it better that it's not for everyone, because it's a hard thing. You're going to have to go. These people, when I finished off the path all the way from the time that they left the designated point, which is called Ramesses, when they left Pi-Ramesses and down to Saqqat, and from once you start that path, you're on the path and you're going the path, and it goes the way. And when you're done with the way, you go all the way. And this is all the way. Like that generation perishes at Kadesh Barnea, and their children inherit the land. That generation is called Israel, and it goes up and does a whole new epic. But at the same time, from the point that the people left Egypt to the time that they crossed into the land, amazing. It came to 777. 777. I think it maybe even had a 0.7 on it. But when you've drawn the line, it's meticulous stuff. You got to be right down there on your Google Earth, and drawing this, taking this little leader and going along the route. And the route is really set. It's a way that is set in geography. You've got to go this way. And if you just don't take into account any of the meandering, that in each location they were there for a time, and they must have been like wandering around for a little while they're here. While they're at this location, they're doing things. You're not just sitting. Um, but if you took that all out of the equation and just said the root from beginning to end came to 777, and I was just like, whoa, but that's a long way to walk. You know, it's kind of crazy. And it's miles, if I remember right. 777 miles. Still, it's a long way. You know, you've got you know, how many people could actually live to walk that kind of path? Um, I guess we've done it. We all walk a lot, and in our lives, you know, to tally like how much we walk in a year and how many years we've lived, and you know that kind of thing. We've walked a lot, but this is a whole generation that um, that this is their coming out. And if they had been cooperative, if they'd been compliant, you know, if they'd been along with it, if they bared with it, rather than complain and rather than oh, I don't know, just rebel these 10 times, they end up getting cursed. And if it had not been, that's kind of an interesting thing. 10 plagues on Egypt, and 10 times that they deny him before he over after having given them 10 matters, you know, that are the oracular definition of what is Israel. He cans them. You know, it's like amazing. Tens keep occurring this way, but that generation that perished, it's like they didn't. It's like he resumes. He says, "Okay, fine. You know, you're gonna make me wait for 40 years to inherit another generation, but so what? It's still going to happen. My plan is still going to happen," and it does. And you realize that like wow, if if when they came out, and you run into this in the narrative that there's this time at Kadesh where they are told that they should go up and go up to the land. Well, at that point in time, they're already in Kadesh Barnea. So you got this thing where people try to run it together, Kadesh and Kadesh Barnea. The scripture has a continuing problem that you run into, and you can identify it really easily. And it is just plain what fits the narrative once you know it. There's a place called Kadesh, and there's a place called Kadesh Barnea. And sometimes Kadesh, what should be Kadesh, gets Barnea. And you're looking at it really curiously. Like, well, that doesn't fit. We know where Kadesh Barnea is, and we know where Kadesh is. And yet the story is telling you Kadesh Barnea, that kind of thing. Well, in this case, it really is. Like if they would have been called up to the land, if they would like, okay, second chance, people, you rebelled against me in the wilderness, but I brought you into this place, and you're settled, and you're strengthened, you're revived, and now you could go up. At that point in time, they're asked to go up, and this is what Moses says in Deuteronomy that you know I gave when the call came that you should go up to the land, you would not. You refused. If that point were, now we have this Jubilees situation where you have a fixed Jubilee in history. And if you know that fixed Jubilee in history, it will count out into connection with all the other amazing points, and they're all in scripture. It's like, here's this time when the temple is built, or here's like the Joshua situation. All the tribes are getting their inheritance. This last seven tribes have that were not part of the warfare are sitting around saying, when will we get our inheritance? And Joshua brings them together, and there's a year when that happens. And it's like, that's where it begins. Not the crossing, not the 1406. You know, so see these people saying this. There's a narrative going on that tells you this, that 1406 is a Jubilee. It doesn't work. 1406 is not a Jubilee. And when is a Jubilee? And these Jubilees go all the way back past. You know, this is God working throughout history. He just happens to reveal it in the Exodus that he's got a calendar. and that this calendar is going from this point, and you're going to enter the land, and when you come into your inheritance, that will be your first year. And Moses tells them this. It's about getting that inheritance. Well, where did they get that inheritance? It wasn't when they crossed. They still had to confront Jericho, much less Ai, and they had to go up and they had to deal with a whole bunch of events before they would ever get inheritance. So when did they get that inheritance? And you could say, oh well, those ones did the conquest. Those that were on the Jordan side already had theirs or whatever. And you can say this, but no, it matters when they all had their inheritance. And Joshua does it. He lines it out for them. He says, okay, you assemble you all, and I'm going to tell you the borders. These are your territories. And he assigns them. For you, this and this and this and this. For you, this and this and this and this. And he tells you from this place to this place, all along this place. And it's all very place geographical. And it's really important. But that's the date. That year is a Jubilee year. And it keeps going on. Like, there was a Jubilee year, 1 year before and this is awesome, the 77s, the 70 weeks prophecy of Daniel, the going forth of the command to restore and rebuild that the year count begins on is the year 2, the year after a year 1 that is Jubilee. And the whole system is built on 49s, 7 sevens, 49, 7 sevens, 49, 49, 49, 49. And every seventh is a Shemitah. And 7 of those, still Shemitah, you arrive at 49, a 50th that is a first. 50th first, same thing. And you start another 49. And it's always that first year that is Jubilees. And a first year occurred the year before the going forth of that command to restore and rebuild Jerusalem that the count of Daniel begins on. And it's really important because all this is really fixed. And you're going through time and you're going to see everything. If you just plain and simply go his way, you're going to see it all. And if you don't, you're going to be deceived in thinking it's 50-year periods, and you're going to be making centuries. And 50 and 50 and 50 and 50 and 50. There's a 50 and there's a first. And you're going to be continually 2 years off for every century, compounding through time, both directions. And this has been all these things. Whether you're talking about geography, whether you're talking about gemstones that are the Hoshen, that are the birthstones that your name should be written in to found your name for God, all these oracular stuff, is not given. Every copy of the commandments that I've ever seen is not accurate. It's not as it was written in stone. And every depiction, every translation, I run into this constant thing. And doing the Exodus route is the ultimate example of it. You're going to see the real places, and you're going to see that why did they think it was over there? And why was this squiggly line with all these questionable locations with nothing? And all those who went it said there's no proof that the Exodus ever even happened, and so probably it was a myth. And it's late composition. These are new names that were written after the captivity, everything's been leveled against Bible because there isn't anything to it. And so how great it is to actually find out what those elements are, what those beyond things places are, how the terrain matches what you're going through in the narrative. It's super profound. It's just amazing. But yes, you can, if you get off of it, if you get distracted by any one thing that they say, look here, this must be, well, does it fit the narrative? Because if it doesn't, don't go hailing it. Don't make the narrative, don't lose the narrative and make a make-believe way over this location and this location that this is our agenda and we're sticking to it. It can be a great tourist thing because nobody's, they're not going to go the whole way. They just want to go to tourism, just wants to see this place and this place. It's my itinerary. And they're happy to just don't arouse me, But if you're going the way, it's an amazing thing because it's all along the way. You're constantly, like, the problem with the path, and the reason why tourism is kind of difficult about it is borders. That it doesn't follow the border crossings that people that the main ways. So you got to leave the Exodus route to go to another nation across a border, hence from Egypt into Saudi, and from Saudi into Jordan. You know, you can't go the path. You've got to go the road through the gate, and get back to the route on the other side. So there's not just that, but there's also where the ways that the planners, the people who made highways and that are based on railways, where those were put were based on a different path. So like the King's Highway, the King's Highway is a good example of how things have changed. There's an important way to know, but more than that, kind of like the highway system that does go from Saudi through Jordan follows the Hijaz, the Hijra, the way to Mecca, and there is a railroad that was first there. So just like Route 66 originally followed the railroad, there was the waterways, then there was the railroad along those waterways, then there was the highway along that railroad, and now we got a freeway that no longer even follows the exact Route 66 anymore. It's found even ways through mountains. They cut paths, and this is what exists today. There are roads that have been cut into mountains. You can see it sheared on all sides, so there's a road through it. But that's not that way was difficult before, or it wasn't impossible. There was no way there. There wasn't a road there, much less a highway. It was narrow between mountains that just a stream came through, like in the case of Nueva. But anyways, the problem with the route is that you've got to go off the beaten path. But that's exactly what will save you in the end of the world, because the way that tanks and guns and soldiers are going, being transported, is along main ways. And this is kind of why highways exist, is for the military to be able to transport stuff around. And so knowing the way that is in the geography that was given you before all these borders were drawn and these highways were made and these gates, these checkpoints, this apparatus was installed. It's amazing. But if you go the way, you are brought off of that. But if you don't, now in my slides, I got to go ahead and get into my slides here, and I've got to figure out how to do this. I want to say stop sharing, but that's not what you do. You say slides. Nope, not slides. Nope. I don't know how to do this.
I just turned on my camera like I could help you, but I don't know how to do it either.
Because I've got a slide for this that I can show you.
Well, it might be the next button, or like if you can.
Yeah.
Scroll. They're all there. I think if you just look at your slides like you normally would, that will just see what you see.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Do I stop screen?
No, I think you just go into the file you want to go into on your desktop or your laptop. Yeah.
And then say, if there was a way to share share desktop, I would.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I just said that, but I didn't mean it matters what kind of device. But yeah, I think I'm seeing that it looks like imports is highlighted right now. Is that where your photos are stored that you want to show us?
I want to show something that I did. It might be this. No, it's not this either.
Okay.
Something I did that's really neat. But yeah, I'll show it to you when I find it. It's
okay.
If you had to do the Exodus route. Here it is.
Okay.
If you had to do the Exodus route from.
Oh, you can't see it. We're looking at the same.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know why. Also, my cat is acting insane.
Share. Present. Is it called present?
Perhaps. I've never shared in this in StreamYard. It's a learning curve for me too.
Yeah. I got a map here. And it's so cool. But what the map is if you had to do the Exodus from the main roads, could you do it? And I've got it established how the places that that follow the Exodus the closest, and the ways and where they crossing points where the Exodus comes through, and at this point, and you see it. It's like you're seeing they are over there, and they're getting closer. They're getting closer. They're getting closer. They crossed right here over to the other side, and then they are going that way, and you can see it. But once you have it on the topo, you have it on, and then the road that's going contrary to the way crosses it at certain points, and you can see the way, or you can look off to the side and say you can just barely see in the distance where they were, and if you know what to look for, you can point out. See that mountain? See the ridge over there? They were along that, or they were following this valley from the road. You can see it. You can just point or look out. And so on a tour, I've got to do this. I've got to actually say, okay, everybody look out the right side, and you'll see the path that they came. And okay, now they crossed here, and look to the left side. You can see the way they went, and then on you're going until you get your Jeep tour, until you arrive and you get your off-road capability. And you get to actually go there, and this is the way it is, It's a marvel. You got to experience this. I say, that's the value of the whole thing, is that for real. On the one hand, you could take it from somebody who's doing this, and they can prove it. Well, okay, if you need to know how the word defined, it's this. And if you need to understand how that fits the geography, it's this. And sometimes God does something really amazing. He preserves the place name, though nobody realizes it. Like that has been one of the decisive points. You've got the definition, and you're looking in the right area, and you're seeing the right thing, but you don't know how serious it is. Like, an example is in the Bible, in the King James Bible, it says Rithma. Well, Rithma is Ratama, and Ratam. Ratam is a broom tree, and it's common along watered paths in the desert. Where water goes, there's Ratamas, and so I found them. Yeah, there sure is a whole way of Ratamas here. So I said, Rithma is this whole way, and I circle it. The whole big thing is all Rithma. But little did I know, there is all the way in. If you follow Rithma all the way back to this remote place in the wilderness, there is literally a kind of a forest of them. There's Ratama everywhere. Now, this is the site of Ratama. Then I could actually pinpoint it. And not all the places on the path are pinpointable, because like it is describing a whole narrative that they're going through. It's an area, and so for the most part, you got circles. This area is this word. It's white. This area is and it's white. dramatically white, or golden. It's dramatically golden. Or like in the Ramon Peretz thing, it's not Ramon Peretz in Israel. There's nothing Ramon about that place. It's not, you go to Wadi Rum and you're there, and then Wadi Rum is Ramon, and you're there. You're looking at there it is, Wadi Rum. Wadi, they call it Wadi Raman. It's still Raman, the pomegranate. You're looking at that color and going, it's crazy. It looks like Ramon Peretz means a burst, one that grew so long on the tree that it burst. And a bursted pomegranate has a certain character to it. It's the color. It's the characteristic of the bursting. I've got rocks of it. I could just like reach over here and grab one and pull it and show it to the camera, I guess. It's that kind of thing. You're going through the geography is the best word for the geography that you have. This was what they experienced. This was the type of rock. This was the type of shape of things. They were going through this area that is what the word describes. And when you run into the places where, like, oh my gosh, you've got to know the path that you were on and keep going that way because you're distracted. It's a camp location where basically at this point they could have just dispersed. They could have just went so many different ways. Everybody could have just said, hey, wow, if I just keep going that way, I'm in a whole other world by myself. And if you're from where you are, you go that way. So it's just like an intersection of many different ways. But that kind of thing, you do see it there, and that's what the word means. So you're like, that's the way the path works. It constantly is telling you. I mean, when you Harada, when you see Harada, there is no. You're shocked. You're stunned and amazed. That is literally what the word means, and there you are, and you're seeing why it's called that. It's dreadful. It's how will we go? They were at that point in time going, which way do we go? The Lord has left us. He says, "You shall now know my breach, my breach of covenant." Whatever. He leaves them at that point in time. He leaves them, and he only speaks with Moses from that point on, and he only serves the people through Aaron and the tabernacle at that time, and it becomes crucial to that generation. From that time on, they're without him. And only Moses does call and say, okay, if you're willing to go up now, we'll go up. And they don't. That was another Jubilee year, or it would have been. That would have been their crossing in and just plain. The generation receives, because it's not about tribes. It's not about warfare. It's just about being migrants. Migratory. You're a collective of people moving into the land, and you're going to grow into a multitude. It's that, but instead of that happening, it's like at Harada, you've got this realization, like how will we go into the land? They at that point where they lose the Lord and they gain the tzitzit on their garments at that location, and that it becomes about right after that about the red heifer that you're going to be dwelling. You're going to be staying in one place for a while. So you're going to have to cleanse yourself of the dead that they've just dealt with. The people who died of this rebellion of Korah and the pestilence. What is the disease? Anyway, all the people who die, they have to cleanse themselves from it, and so they tell this red heifer. And now we got these people saying, "Oh, well, if you start up the temple, you've got to have the red heifer." Well, okay, they needed this when they had to cleanse themselves from the dead. That's what it's for. When you come in contact with a dead body, You need to be cleansed by these ashes. Anyway, there's so many things. Currently, there's an agenda that's misrepresenting everything, and it's making everything nothing. It's hijacked everything. It's replaced the words to meaninglessness, and it hasn't given you the definition of terms that the word is that the narrative is based on. And that could be as simple as things like God, like we use God and we say God. But to somebody who doesn't know English, they don't understand what is God. What is that word, anyways? And you got to, what is it? What is the word origin in English? What's the etymology of God? And for a while, it was the word with unknown etymology. Nobody knew. And then it was like, okay, it goes back to German and it means good. God is good, and that makes sense, and we can substantiate that with the Bible and everything else. But that's not like Hebrew. God doesn't mean good in Hebrew, And it's the same with you have it in the New Testament. You got theos, and what is theos? We would say, of course, it's theory, it's theoretical. Well, actually, it's a concept. It's an idea. It's you have some idea of what it means. You have what you think it's about, and it really is your God. God is what you're after. It is close in that sense to the Hebrew, that all things are to El. El is always translated when it's not God. It's translated toward, but toward. All things are toward God. It is the ultimate. There is nothing after. And this is what he says. There is no God after. When the Lord says, and the Lord is one, not God. God is not one. God is always Elohim, plural, because your field is not my field, and that area of expertise can't possibly know that area of expertise, and all the fields are so many that you must be an expert of to comprehend fully. This is what God is, Elohim. So many, so multi-represented, it's just mind-boggling. There is no way you can possibly comprehend the greatness of Elohim yet. You can't see that circumspectly. You can't, eyes in the back of your head, or whatever. You're not fully aware. And you can't be. And if you were, you'd be crazy because you'd be aware of so many things. But he who is the God of gods, he who is he who represents him, then the reason we have a relationship, the one who can comprehend it and explain it to each and every one of us, that the Lord is one. The Lord our God, which is not plural. Our God is singular, and it is the Lord is one. Kind of important to know these kind of distinctions, but you don't run into this. In most theological circles, you don't have defined terms. You're going to read the whole scripture knowing what this word means. So you just, this has been the thing. We're back engineering and arriving at the end that we didn't know. We didn't know the way. And we put out maps based on traditions, and they had these questionable locations that had no real route. And they just showed kind of circles and lines that are not walkable. And it didn't make sense. But it stayed there. And the questions remained. And there wasn't a road there either. So it's that problem. Now, though, at least we can see the way geography is conducive to 2 million people walking through the way, and you can. It all makes perfect sense. But otherwise, you can't. If you turn, you're up against that. You're contradicting the narrative. That's all there is to it. And this has been the problem, that if you try and go another way, you're going to have difficulty ever coming back onto it. And if you do go it, it's succinct. Every place lines up with the next place, brings you. Every place leads you to the next place. That leads you to the next place. And every point you have all the, now when we go through it, you can see it. You can see this is habitable. Or here's even remnants of it. You can see the proof of the people that were there, or the habitableness of it. I guess that's maybe more important. In some cases, it's more apparent than others. There are some things like, especially the generation that goes up. You got them coming with Moses to a certain point where he detaches the military, all soldiering people. He leaves them at one location, then he brings the people to where they are to be kept when the warfare happens, and he comes back to the soldiers and they go up. And they meet the enemy and they defeat one king, Sihon, and another king, Og, in Bashan. And they go these ways. They go these two paths. And it's not one path leading to another path. That's where you definitely have a way of Bashan that goes around Ammon one way. And you can see all these things. The cities are there. You can still go to every one of the ruins of these cities. They're all there. I got so many pins, it's crazy. So nowadays it's sort of like, okay, well, we can take you to the cities. And so like with Rhonda, that's what we did. That was just part of it. It was like, okay, where are we at right now? Well, we're in the land of Sihon. Well, can he show us his the cities that were attacked? Yes, and the ruins are everywhere. They're conspicuous. There isn't any nobody's trying to hide anything. The archaeology is on the surface. It's right there under your feet. You're kicking and you're picking up whether it's, I've got a bunch of bullets, stones of stoning, sling stones, some very massive for striking walls, and some lesser ones for closer combat, just bullets. You could be very accurate with those. They're everywhere. The ruins are everywhere. They all have the same thing in common. I wonder, how did they burn? What were they burning with? It's extremely hot. Whatever it is that they were burning with, it shows up on the geography. It's outstanding. It's like they had Greek fire kind of thing. The places they burnt are seriously burnt. And the ruins are, they're all in that row. The way when they were following that valley to the point where the valley split, and then at that point the ruins go two different ways, and they split into two groups that go around. From that point on, they stay separate. And the valleys go in this curve, parallel, and it's just amazing. They finally do reconvene, and then you've got like where the people were kept is an especially beautiful place. It's just like here, if you were at this point, and so I know these old people that are here, and they're like, where should we go? Where should we try and live? And I'm like, well, there is this place where the old people were put when Moses brought that generation up. The people who were the eldest, or the people who had children, or the people who had flocks, or whatever it is, the people who were not to go to war were kept at a place, and this place is especially good because it's got everything. It's abundant in water. It's got a lot of vegetation, fruit trees, whatever. A lot of it's orchards, and it's beautiful place with a lot of grass. And if you were confronted by an enemy, there's only one way the enemy can come, and yet there's so many ways you can flee. So there's no way that they could all be killed. It was the way that when they came up against Sihon, if they failed, if they were overpowered and overrun somehow, that at least they would have a escaping chance to enter the land. They could still be the generation surviving to inherit the to go up and take and well inherit the land. They could at least occupy. They could settle. They would survive and settle the land, and that was it. May not be so glorious, but we'll at least be sure that we've covered them. And so it's a beautiful location. But all this is that way. The once you know it, the ruins are extensive, especially those up toward Bashan. Once you go that way, the problem with that way currently is that there's an Air Force base out there. That is, there's a military base, and so it's not easily gotten around. You've got to actually do that. You've got to go around. If you want to see these places, you can only see the fringe. And it's like the air base is located and a border you got with Syria. And then you got most of the places from there on are in Syria. But once you know what they look like on the map, once you see the places where they did have these strikes, once you know what they look like, you can see them in the satellite imagery. And we now have great satellite. We have access to really good satellite works now. In fact, there's this thing called real-time satellite or something like that. And I got it. It's an app. But I don't know if this has to do with the new satellite system up there. If you know anything about that, bunches and bunches of satellites that got strung up there, or if it's just a certain, like, this is the new Earth imaging platform or something. But it's I've not tried it yet, but it's there. And so yeah, it's important to know what you're looking for. And once you know what you're looking for or how it is, you can't miss it. And that's the situation of the Exodus. It's knowing from the word power, the word meaning in the narrative, the story that's depicted, what it means, and then the topography, and then the geography, geological. What are we dealing with here? What is the weather like, or what's the insects, or because every place is different. You can have multiple types of enemies, wildlife that's threatening, or insects, or whatever.